you very much. Welcome all to another update meeting. First thing we need to do is get through and see which teams are here. So let's see, let me pull out my list of teams. I had it here somewhere, and there it is. So I guess I'll read off the teams if somebody there can keep track of who's here. Do we have a rep from Carthage? And maybe we can just have somebody put something in the chat as they say that too, I suppose.
Carthage is here.
Thank you. Somebody from Marquette.
Marquette is here.
Awesome. MSOE. Is there somebody from MSOE on the line? Not hearing it. How about UW Green Bay? Let's try UW Milwaukee.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds good, thank you. Somebody from Platteville.
Platteville's here.
Awesome. How about UW River Falls? And how about Sheboygan, UW Sheboygan?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. So let me go back and check. MSOE, is there anybody on the line? Green Bay or UW River Falls? So we'll have to watch for those as the time goes by and see if we get anybody. But meanwhile, I'm gonna share my screen and we're gonna get started here. Let's see. There we go. So kind of quickly running through the list of agenda items. Basically, we're going to be kind of running down, catching up, making sure everybody is on the same page with the competition. And then we'll talk about some upcoming changes or any things that are happening. So none of this will be new news. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time dwelling on it. But big thing to remember is we've got the umbilical connection at the beginning of the whole competition there. And you're going to be in charge of your USB cable, everything from the end of your USB cable all the way out to your computer. We're going to supply that connection. We'll go over that in a short while. Some of the important news happening on the calendar. So we're at the next event that we've got going here, which is our update meeting. In a week, we have the deadline for the CDR, the Critical Design Review Report. And we talked about that last time. We'll reiterate some of the things that need to be in there. But that's coming up, along with your team rosters, so we can kind of get that organized, put to bed. Then a couple weeks after that, we have the first payout deadline. Some things going on with that, deal with the expense form, so you can get at these links. All this is up on the calendar that's up on the Space Grant Tools and Tips page. It's also in the handbook we've got up there, the rules book. So first big change, the design safety review, as we said last time, it's not going to take place at the EAA because they're not doing any outside events at the EAA. So you're going to be scheduling an appointment to have your rocket viewed, have your safety reviewed for your rocket. So that'll be coming up, and those will be needed to be completed by that Saturday, March the 27th. We've got the flight readiness report. That's the final. So after you've already done your critical design review, After you've had a chance to maybe test some more things, maybe even get a test flight in, you can put together your flight readiness review report. So if you've made changes to your design, you've updated this, you've finalized some information, that's all is what's going to be in that FRR report that's coming up about a month and a half from now. And then we've got that's the form outline or the education outreach form out online deadline. Get that right. We've got the 2 events happening back to back. One is the presentations are due on April the 19th. That's the beginning of the week. And then at the end of the week, the presentations will be done. And I'm going to ask Christine to join us, to open up her mic and join us to comment about how it looks for doing live presentations at Carthage at this point in time.
So, sorry, let me move my screen back over so I'm actually looking at the camera. So right now, Carthage College is
We lost your mic. You got the Carthage colleges, and then we lost your mic.
Got that. So, so Carthage College at this point is not allowing external events to happen on campus. We had hoped by this point that that would be different. So we'll probably give it, because we're all in state, we're probably going to give it maybe about 2 more weeks, 3 more weeks to see if that changes. And if not, then most likely we're going to be going to a virtual platform for your oral presentations. With that being said, we will still need to know whether or not your teams, and maybe we won't hit this again. We'll need to know in the past, it's always been the lodging list or the roster. So you will have to have your roster submitted. All the team members will need to be applied, registered on the WSGC website and applied. And we will still need to know if anybody is going to be traveling to the competition for Saturday, and we'll need to have hotels the night before. So that information will need to be submitted to Connie.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm going to go back, get my screen back up here. There it is. Oh. So finishing up on our calendar for things that are coming up, we have that competition on that Saturday, the 24th. And right now it's looking pretty good that we're going to get to run that portion of the competition without too much of a problem. I'm going to turn to Frank for a moment, see if he's got a quick comment about how things have been going at the Tripoli launches in terms of the whole social distancing and stuff. So if you open your mic, Frank, and give us some comments on that.
Good afternoon, everyone. The launches have been pretty much successfully taken place at Richard Bong. The park management have been pretty satisfied and complimentary on our COVID guidelines that we have in place. Of course, the mask and social distancing, along with distancing and parking and where the tents are set up, and the flight line and everything. They were pretty impressed on how we operated compared to the other patrons that used the park. But they gave us an attaboy a few times already. Otherwise, we are in full launch mode for rocket launches at Bong on our scheduled dates on our website, and including the CRL launch in April.
And Dr. Farrow, is this a good time to talk about some of the requirements at Bong, or do we want to wait for that?
We can go, since we've got Frank here also right now. Why don't we go ahead and review that?
Okay. So some of the things to know / think about is when we do get to the launch site, we will have to maintain that social distancing. For those of you who have participated in the program in the past, you know that each team usually has a single table. So we'll be working on coming up with a plan so that, you know, each team will have 2 tables. So 1 student to each side of the table. We'll have a couple chairs for you guys so that you can hopefully maintain your social distancing as you work on your rocket. You will need to wear masks, and then you also will have to have your temperature checked once you cross over into the, you know, from the pit area over to the launch pad area. You will need to sign a waiver, and I don't know if Frank, you want to talk about that a little bit, but I think that kind of covers the COVID.
Yeah, anytime you cross the causeway in the launch area, you must wear your masks. You must maintain social distancing. You will be your temperature will be checked. You will sign a AAA Association waiver and also a COVID waiver. You know, stating that you haven't been sick in the last 30 days. You're not aware of being in contact with anybody with the COVID. You haven't traveled outside the United States in 30 days, yada, yada, yada. And you check them and off to the launch pad, and RSO will check it. And I hope it's a good day, and it should be. Because you know what? I'm waiting for a nice day to launch because we just canceled this weekend.
Ouch. Just too cold, huh?
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. Now, let's get back and finish up the where we're at on the schedule here. So following the launch, there's a post-flight report that reviews your rocket's performance and how close you were to your anticipated performance, as well as any type of anomalies that may have occurred, and review of what happened in those anomalies, any lessons learned, that type of material, followed up by the teams that get invited to attend at the annual conference, which is set to be still coming up in August at Milwaukee School of Engineering in downtown Milwaukee. And right now we are planning for that conference to be an in-person conference with some contingency planning also occurring in case by that time Milwaukee doesn't allow us to have those type of in-person activities taking place. But right now we're planning for that to take place as an in-person event. Okay, moving on. So we've already kind of discussed the competition parameters. Let me think. The one that I did want to go over again is the cable, just in case there's some questions, things that are out there. I'm going to switch to another camera that I have available and stop sharing so that I can bring it up. Actually, I think I'll continue to share and try doing it that way. Let me go back. Share that one. And then let me find my camera this way.
I did spotlight you if need be too.
Okay, I'm going to try and do it through the screen and see how that works. So let's see, get that up there. And then I can do this. And hopefully everyone's able to see that. So this is the hardware, one set of the hardware that we're going to be using. So there's 2 separate modules. They look very similar to each other. One of them has a USB end that plugs into your computer, and the other one has the USB end that you'll be plugging your cable into. And then your cable is going to be connected to your rocket with the magnetic breakaway that allows it to snap off the rocket at launch without retarding its launch at all. Between those two, we're going to have a couple hundred feet of essentially what amounts to network cable that's going to allow us to transfer the signal from one end of that USB cable all the way back to your computer. So you'll have to connect to your computer. And we'll be supplying power from a battery pack to supply the power to drive this end of the USB cable. The other end of the USB cable, this module, only needs to get powered locally, and that's going to be powered by your computer, just like any USB device would be powered by your computer. So the piece that you'll need to bring with you is that much. You'll need to have a USB connector, a magnetic breakaway USB cable that will work with your onboard system. You'll have that breakaway piece installed in your rocket, and it will fly with your rocket, and the rest of the cable will remain on the ground. So my suggestion is that you get a couple of those cables, because these little ends are pretty easy to lose if you don't have them plugged into a module, a computer, or whatever. And so we should be able to get everybody connected back to their computer, which will be, like I say, a couple hundred feet away from the launch pad, back by the control table, the launch control table, so that you are at a safe distance from the launch for the flight. I'm going to open up at this point. I'm going to open up and see if there's any questions out there that people have about that specific hardware. The breakaway cable, how we're going to interface to your computer, what you're going to be doing with your end of it. Are there any questions out there?
I have a question.
Sure.
How long from the launch pad to the first repeater is that going to be? Like, how long do we need the cable to be?
So your cable only needs to be a couple of hundred feet long, or a couple hundred feet. Let's try again. How about 6 feet long, approximately?
Okay.
And then we will mount the part that you'll connect to. We'll mount this part on a different part of the launch rail that will basically, we'll hang it there with zip ties or whatever's needed to allow it to be that far away from your rocket.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay. Let me put that away. There we go. So our plan is to have a couple of those systems available so that we've got some redundancy on the field. We could, envision the idea that we could set up for more than one launch if we have more than one system, but it sounds like we're not going to need to support trying to get through a rapid launch, that we'll be able to do them one at a time and have plenty of time during the day to get these rockets off the pad. Let's see, the certification workshop. Oh, some quick comments about the workshop. We had really good attendance at the workshop. So some of us actually got a chance to build our first high power rocket. Now just looking for an opportunity to fly, and it may come that the first opportunity for me to fly is that same weekend as your teams are flying. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Before we go on, Dr. Farrow, may I think that we have a few students that are on, and maybe even a couple more advisors.
Sure.
I would love it if we could take a couple minutes, and I'm going out on a limb here, but wondering if anybody would want to just quickly chat about their experience in the workshop, and what it was like, and the value of maybe attending that if we have that again next year. I know Perry, you attended, right? No, you did not. I thought you did. Did it, Jordan, you observed for the time that you were there. Would you want to?
I could also just say I talked to my team members who did go, and they really loved it. They enjoyed it. They found it like very educational. Really got them excited about our rocket, and looking forward to getting certified, and then even going a step higher and getting additionally higher certified in the future.
Perfect. Thanks, Perry. And Jordan, I think you attended as a shadow, if I'm not
Mhm.
mistaken. So if
Yeah,
you
so I
wanna
was only there for
talk
the
about it.
first evening, but it was very informative. I just remember the one thing with getting the exact right position for the fins, or some of the parts that the fins connect to. I wouldn't have thought to make sure that the fins were precisely where they are. I would have just personally like lined them up with the holes on the side of the rocket. So it was very informative, definitely, to like see and kind of hear the experience of other people who have done it a million times before and know what they're doing. Because I would have just, oh yeah, this is what it should be.
Excellent. Thank you. Drag or Bill, do you want to just chime in real quickly?
Go ahead, Drag.
Hey, this is Drag here. Yeah, I had my first time building a rocket, and I thought it was a perfect timing. One long day, plus a little extra the night before, but perfect timing. And just getting to know, what the internals are, and you're forced to build it all on your own. No one helping, so great experience. Look forward to firing that puppy up, hopefully in April.
So
Very
in
good.
my experience, very similar. Really had a good time learning from people that a drag had said have done this a number of times before. Just getting a chance to see some of the insights that they shared. There's some challenging portions where you're working with epoxy. The epoxy likes to flow around when you put it in places on the rockets. And the whole description of how to set the fillets at the base of the fins and how to pre-tape so that you don't have to try and scrape things off afterwards or file down drips afterwards was extremely insightful and helpful. Things I wouldn't have thought of on my own, but they know through experience. And so it made building the rocket that much more fun because things came out the way they should have first try.
And Dylan or Ian, I think you guys were on as well. Do you have anything to add? Or Bill?
Yeah, sorry, my headset or my camera isn't working, but yeah, I'd say it was great. Yeah, all those extra insights that I wouldn't have thought of with epoxy dripping. I definitely agree with all that. I thought even though like it still seems stressful, is because I tend to get overwhelmed easily. It's still like the amount of timing I think that was given for every part was really well done, really well thought out.
Yeah, I also thought it was really well put together. The Roxon part really helped me, and now how to like really get my rocket down and Roxon and stuff like that. That was really helpful. Even like Dr. Farrell, what he said, like thinking about this different stuff when I actually build our rocket, then I'm going to implement all those different things too. So that was really well. Thank you.
Oops,
I
sorry.
think it's.
I want to encourage any of you that if we are able to provide this opportunity again for you next year, maybe take a little bit of what folks have said and try to be one of the two people that gets to attend next year from your team, because it is a very worthwhile opportunity. All right, sorry.
No, I think it's gonna do kind of what we've hoped from hearing from the students that participated, either this way or the ones that I've run into, that just the enthusiasm now to get out and build the rockets, to incorporate it into their build for the actual competition rocket. I think we're going to see some better quality builds coming out of it. I'm excited.
Me too. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the rest of the presentation. Not a lot left. So we already talked about the team rosters, so on. Just a quick reminder, you can go up to the Carthage Space Grant website and find the tools and tips. And in there are all the forms that you'll need for any of this, including where the handbook is for the rules, the calendar, all that's up there that you can get to and view. Some quick things to remember about the CDR. So it's due in a week. We've got to get this done. Its purpose, the main purpose of this, is to communicate the design effort that's gone into your rocket. Not just, we have this cool rocket and it's going to do this cool stuff. It's how did you make the decisions? How did you get to where you got? So hopefully you've been kind of keeping track of that and going along the way, describing how you've incorporated the different criteria that we have out in front of us in terms of getting the sensors where you need them to monitor the engine temperature, getting the mount set up for the USB cable, and so on and so forth. So all that needs to be on there. All those features. How are you setting up your recovery system so that you can have the dual deploy and allow for the motor backup charge? So all that has to be incorporated in your design. And so make sure you're pointing out how you've designed to make it compatible with those criteria in the system. Don't forget the construction photos. If you've done any analysis at this point, any type of performance, so that could be your models, getting your models together in RockSim, and it could be that you've actually tested some other parts to see how things are going to work. How are you going to get the data? How is it going to separate? That kind of stuff. So kind of keep that all in mind. That's all part of that review. As I mentioned before, the safety review, so the deadline for those to happen will be the 27th. So watch for more information that comes out for scheduling those online connections. So we'll do that again via Zoom. And in those situations, if you can social distance and be on the same call with your part of your team, that's awesome. Or if you can have as many of your team members plug in online, we'd like to get everybody that's on your team at your meeting, but the idea would be to have most everybody there. And if they all have to be on separate calls or separate computers to get in, we can accommodate that. Or if you're going to be socially distanced in, say, a lab on campus or somewhere that you can take turns being right in front of the camera and so on, that would be awesome also. So watch for the correspondence on getting those meetings scheduled. We're gonna big things on that. The meeting there is that your rocket should be at the 90% assembled level, which essentially means you may not have your parachute installed. It may not be painted at this time, but your rocket should be basically built. The fins are installed on the motor mount. It's all in place. The shock cord has been anchored the way it should be, and that you can discuss and explain all that to the reviewing panel online. So have your photo documentation necessary, or be able to use a camera and change the point of perspective so that you can show where on the rocket all of this has been accomplished. Whoops, keep flipping a little fast. And then the FRR is coming up, the Flight Readiness Review. So that's the final report that coincides also with your presentation. that catches up any changes that you've made in your rocket. So the flight readiness review, as I was saying, it catches up any of the changes on your rocket. Maybe you've had a chance to actually get a test flight in which case maybe you learned something about your model, or maybe you learned something about the performance of this or that, and you made some modifications to your rocket. So this would be where you communicate how you learned that and what showed up in there. Or maybe you did some other tests, some tests to make sure that your internal hardware is working and sensing what it's supposed to sense, or measuring, or that the separation is going to work. So any of those small, like benchtop tests that you perform on your rocket to verify things are going to perform correct, this is where you'd be commenting on those. So you try and verify as much as you can on the ground. Maybe you've tested your flight video system to verify that it's going to see down your rocket the way you want to be able to see down your rocket. So you've set that up and you've tested it. That's a test. Just because you turned it on and looked at it and said, great, all you need to do is write it up. You've actually done a test to demonstrate that that system's performing the way you need it to in order to go to flight. So, as well as photographs, at this point in time, your rocket should start becoming pretty photogenic. It should be painted up. It should be getting to that point where now it's just a matter of waiting, coordinating the rest of the innards for your payload and so on. You have the presentation, and you already heard that we're going to have a go no go call for live on the presentations coming up in just a couple weeks. But right now it's not looking all that favorable to do these live in person, that is. So if that's the case, then we will be doing them online once again, similar to the way we're going to be doing the safety review meetings. So we will be working on that. So as we get closer to those dates, watch for that. And one thing that I haven't even explained yet, but we'll probably be looking into, that since we're not going to be gathering all together as all teams for the EAA review, we'll probably need to set up another virtual meeting online where we can get all teams together and get everybody updated as we get closer to that date. So, because there was a lot of updates that we would share normally in person at the EAA. And so we'll probably be setting up and scheduling a virtual meeting for getting closer towards that end of the competition time. And then finally, we've got the competition flight. And right now, the one silver lining to this whole COVID cloud that we've got is that it sounds like that is still go for us. That we will be able to, as long as we practice the social distancing required, that we'll be able to get down to the Richard Bong area, get out to the launch site, and be able to have the teams present one at a time to the launch system and get their rocket to fly. So that will be so rewarding to see after being stuck inside all this time. So that gets me to the end of the presentation. And so I'm going to open up the floor first to Christine or Frank or Bob if they've got any last minute comments that they want to share out. And then we'll open it up for anybody from the teams that have questions.
I just want to applaud all of the teams. It is a challenging year. So you guys are doing a phenomenal job of just staying interested and having that perseverance to get to the end. And we as a program just really appreciate your dedication to your team and to the competition. So thank you on behalf of our entire team. We really appreciate your interest in the program and your desire to keep going.
This is Frank here. I really had a good time on the level 1 rocket build those 2 days. You guys did excellent. You followed the instructions right to the T. There were no big mistakes at all. You guys just flowed perfectly. There was no delays. You guys did swell. It was the best team I worked with that followed the instructions to the T. And I was impressed, as of Dr. Farrell said, there wasn't much milk spilled, if you want to say it that way, on the rockets. They came out pretty clean and easy to assemble. You got to be proud of yourselves. It was great. And as far as testing your rocket, as Dr. Farrell mentioned, test. Test all your components. Test your altimeters if they operate. We'll have a launch in March 6th. And of course, the first weekend in April, which is Easter weekend, I think we have a Saturday launch. If you want to come out and test your deployment charges, be my guest. Come on out if you got to test your deployment charges and how many grams you have to use. We can supply the charges for you if you need any. Or you can even fly your rocket if you have to, but you have to pay for the motor on your own dime on a test flight. And if you need any help on help with your rocket construction part or any help of ideas under your rockets, talk to me or Bob. We're here willing to help. So don't be afraid to ask. Thank you.
So now we'll open it up for any questions out there. If you do have a question, please, when you open your mic, give us the name of your school and then wait to be recognized, and then we'll let you go ask a question. Or if you don't want to ask out loud, you can type it into the chat stream.
Christine, this is Katie from UW Platteville.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I had a question about the virtual presentation on the Friday and then the launch on the Saturday. So for those of us who are coming from a little bit farther away, how do you guys envision the logistics of that will be? Do you think we'll present in Platteville and then drive to Kenosha, or like present from our hotel room in Kenosha, or what was your guys' plan for that?
That's a really good question. So Dr. Farrow and I have been batting around a couple of ideas. And one of them has been, do we want to get a room at the hotel that those that are traveling and staying overnight, that they would have to be there early enough, and then they would do their presentation one team at a time. So that's one option that we're contemplating. The other, we could do, for those teams that don't have to travel, we could potentially do them at a specific time. So this is fairly, not that we haven't thought about it, but we haven't made any final decisions yet. And that will not come out probably more till the beginning of March for the exact how we're going to make it all happen. Because we have both First Nations launch and Collegiate Rocket Launch that we are going to need to coordinate virtually for that weekend. So we're just trying to figure out what's going to be the best flow. But I think that's a good point. Actually, it's something that I hadn't thought about, is that you would be traveling. So we'll try to figure out what's the best way to handle that. Just my biggest encouragement is please keep the times. So typically CRL would be giving their presentations Friday night at about, I think we had it scheduled for around 6:30 p.m. on the calendar. So I'm asking at this point, keep that date secured. Don't make other plans, students, right? Because we will probably try to get it in at that same time, but I'm not sure, because we were going to do both First Nations launch and Collegiate Rocket Launch all at the same time. So everybody's scheduled for 6:30. So we may look at, like I said, other options of doing it earlier in the week, kind of like what we do for our virtual presentations now, where we go 2 to 3 hours a night, have our team of judges, and then schedule the student teams in between. So, but we'll have more information. Sorry, that was a long answer.
Hey, So I'm Jordan from UWGB. I also had a question.
Yes, Jordan.
As far as the launch rail, I was wondering if teams were allowed to build their own, or is there like a custom one, or not custom one, but like a set one that everyone has to use?
It has to be, what do you think, Bob?
Well, I think that if we have a minimum amount of people that would be flying, I think let's run them all off the tower. Because I can do an alligator clip on the tower to hold their drop away cable so it's out of the blast of the engine.
Well,
And-
my main reason for asking is I've been playing around with ways to like make some last minute adjustments to help us get to that altitude we're aiming for. And it's going to be a lot easier to change the angle of the launch than it is to change the mass of the rocket. So I don't know, does the one that everyone use, can you adjust the angle?
Up to 20 degrees.
Yeah, 20 degrees is your legal limit.
Sweet. All right, well, I guess that answers my question.
Sure.
And this is Patrick from Marquette University. Going along with that, for simulation purposes, how long is that rail?
72 inch.
72 inches. And then is that the 1010 rail or is that the 1515?
That's the 1010.
Okay. All right.
And
yep,
and the 15.
Okay, so either one.
Right.
Okay.
Bob, we won't be using a tower because the cable will not be reaching out that far. Bob Justice. Because we have a 1515 rail that's 6 foot, and the rest of the 1010s are 6 foot also.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions out there? I'm not hearing any, so I think we'll get to call it an evening then, at this
Bill,
point in time.
Can
Go
I
ahead,
say
Connie.
one thing before we tune out? Just to let you know, we did have some more people join us later. So the only team that did not have a representative was MSOE.
Okay.
And then to the rest of you, there are several people who still need to either or register and apply. It's a two-step process. So you may think that you're applied and maybe you're just registered. So if you would look into that, and actually the advisors can look in their notices of intent, your application, you can see who on your team has actually applied, it will say. Work on that this weekend if you could, or even this evening. It'd be good to get that out of the way. It needs to be done by next week anyway. So I would encourage you to work on that. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Okay, so I think with that, I'm gonna say that's all we've got for the meeting tonight. Thank you, teams, for showing up and asking your questions, bringing your questions. We'll be corresponding with you over the next couple of weeks. We have a few things to get collected in terms of what's really going to happen with presentations and so on. And we have a few issues about scheduling for the EAA that's not happening, for the online safety review, as well as then kind of keeping you updated about the meeting that we'll gather to replace that one, the virtual meeting. So with that, I think we'll just say have a great evening. Enjoy the weekend when it gets here. Stay warm. I'm hearing we're going to be back into the negative digits on Saturday night. They're saying a low of almost -10 up here. So it's going to be chilly. Good night, all.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Farrell. Thanks, Christine. Thanks, Frank. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.